Hi, my name is Mike Shabazz, and I am the author of Red, White, and Black: No Justice, No Peace. In 1794, 11 years after he and his fellow Americans had won their independence, George Washington sat down to write a letter to his friend. The previous year, in 1793, George had signed the first Fugitive Slave Act, which allowed escaped slaves to be apprehended in any state and returned to their slave masters. He was obsessed with keeping slaves who had fought with the British Army from leaving the country, although the British had promised them that they could after the war. In his letter, he wrote, I shall be happily mistaken if slaves are not found to be a very troublesome species of property ere many years pass over our heads. Fast forward to today. What has really changed? I know a lot of you believe, like I do, that money talks and everything else walks. So let's take a look at the financial situation between black and white people in America. According to the 2019 Survey of Consumer Finances, which is a survey conducted every 3 years by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, the median household income for white Americans is $188,000 a year, whereas the median household income for black Americans is only $24,000. Using the median household income is more reflective of the average household because if you use the average household wealth, the wealthiest households at the top skew the numbers too much. But if you want to look at the average household, which includes the super rich, average household wealth for black Americans is $142,000, while the average household wealth for white Americans is $983,000. In a nutshell, black Americans only have 12.8% of the wealth of white Americans. 73% of the US population is made up of white America, whereas black Americans only make up 13% of the US population. However, black Americans make up 34% of the US prison population, while whites make up only 29%. This fits right in with the goal of most private prisons, which is to make a quick buck instead of rehabilitate lives. This also explains why certain laws have been geared toward incarcerating as many black people as possible. We all know about the differences in sentencing as it pertains to certain crimes. In addition to this, many black people are in prison for crimes they didn't commit. According to an organization called the Innocence Project, 61% of the prisoners exonerated by DNA results since they started doing that in 1989 were African Americans. Compare that to the fact that we only make up 13% of the population. I'll pause here to say that I personally have been held at gunpoint on two separate occasions by police in two different major cities, and both times it was a case of mistaken identity. Fortunately, I was calm and articulate enough during those moments to handle those situations correctly. Here is a list of just some of the major companies that benefit from the prison industrial complex. So not only do we have to deal with the economic disparities, racial profiling, and sometimes blatant racism in America, we also have to deal with a whole host of other facets of systemic racism, including religion, education, and politics, to name a few. So let's look at the fallacy of white supremacy. How did all this start? Have things always been this way? Have black people always been subjugated and oppressed? No. In Red, White, and Black, we go back to the beginning. We talk about the origin of blackness. So I'll cover it briefly here. 96% of the universe is made up of what you call dark matter or dark energy. And from this dark matter or dark energy, everything we know of in the objective universe was created. Just as dark matter dominates the known universe, dark skin, hair, and eye color dominate our genetic pool. In the chart on the left side of your screen, you will see a series of genes represented by a capital B for brown and a lowercase b for blue. And on the right-hand side, you see a chart that shows curly black hair is dominant to smooth, light-colored hair, and that black eye color is dominant to blue eye color. Now, you won't see them blatantly say here that black skin color is dominant to white skin color, but it goes without saying, especially when you consider that skin, hair, and eye color are all determined by polygenic genes, which are multiple genes that mix up and come up with one color based on the law of dominance. Furthermore, in objects that contain organic material, we can tell how old it is with radiocarbon dating. If the object is inorganic, we can tell how old it is by dating the rock formations around the area the object is found in. According to a presentation given at the American Association of Physical Anthropologists by an international team of researchers, 8,000 years ago, Europeans looked different than modern Europeans. In fact, they clearly state in this study that pale skins only arrived in most of the European continent relatively recently. To date, there is no archaeological evidence of modern day white people that go too far beyond 6,000 years. So basically, for everything that's beyond 6,000 years or so, it is safe to say can be considered Black history. And when we say black, we mean all the colors of our people: black, brown, yellow, and red, because we come in many colors. Let's get to it. The first thing I want to look at is the Piri-Reis map of 1513. This map was discovered in the Imperial Archives in Constantinople and was basically sitting there untouched for years. It was created in 1513 by a Turkish admiral named Piri. This map clearly showed North America, South America, Greenland, and Antarctica. The interesting thing about this map is that Antarctica wasn't discovered until 1820, and America had just been discovered in 1492. Yet, the map was detailed and accurate. In his notes, Reyes said that he based his map on several much older maps that he studied while visiting the Imperial Library in Constantinople. He said he viewed many maps there, including one that was believed to have been in the possession of Columbus when he sailed to America. Another interesting point about this map is that South America looks a little stretched out. Some believed this to be a mistake until it was discovered that this is actually the way South America looks from space. Let's discuss a few more ancient artifacts that show the antiquity of man, and therefore the antiquity of Black people. On the left, you see the mysterious metal vase. In June 1851, a science magazine called The Scientific American reprinted a report that first appeared in the Boston Transcript about a metallic vase that had been discovered by miners. It was found about 15 feet below the surface and was deeply embedded inside some rock. It was about 4.5 inches high and made of a zinc and silver alloy. The bell was decorated on the sides with flowers, bouquets inlaid with silver, and came out of a rock that was estimated to be about 100,000 years old. In the middle, we see the Puma Punka stones. The thing about this ancient stone is that it has a perfectly cut groove running straight down it, with holes in the groove that look like they were drilled with a power drill. You'd be hard pressed to find a modern drill that could drill through this stone today. And lastly, on this slide, you have proof of ancient nanotechnology. These mostly spiral-shaped objects were found between 1991 and 1993 by a group of men looking for gold on the Narada River in Russia. The smallest of these objects is about 1/10,000th of an inch. That's small. Laboratory tests revealed that these objects were made of rare metals and are said to be between 20,000 and 318,000 years old. How long it takes for something to fossilize? Some people say it takes millions of years. Well, in 1786, a group of workers digging in limestone came across coins and petrified wood 50 feet below ground, in limestone that is said to be 300 million years old. And in New London, a petrified hammer handle was found inside a 100 million-year-old rock. And lastly, on the left, you see a small black pot found in coal. It was founded in 1912 by two employees shoveling coal in a municipal electric plant in Oklahoma. And according to Robert O. Fay of the Oklahoma Geological Survey, the Wilburton mine coal, where the pot was found, is about 312 million years old. 312 million years old. 312 million years old. So what about electricity? Clay pots have been used in the past to make electric cells, as we see examples of here, and many scholars have always wondered how the Egyptians made such detailed paintings in underground tombs, and yet there was no sign of soot from burnt candles. Here we see even more proof of ancient cultures. You've all heard of Atlantis. In the first picture on the left, you see a place called Bimini Road. It's 20 miles off the coast of Bimini, which is near the Bahamas. In fact, over 30 separate sets of ruins have been found in various locations at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean since 1956. To your right, you see proof of the legend of Lemuria, which is akin to the Atlantic Ocean's Atlantis, but tells of a lost continent buried underwater near the Pacific and Indian Oceans. And lastly, to prove man's antiquity, specifically the black man's antiquity, let's briefly discuss flight. Here, in the bottom left-hand corner, you see a picture of a small plane. It was discovered in a tomb near Saqqara in 1898, and at first labeled just a little bird object. Notice the extraordinary resemblance of the object to modern aircraft. Aerodynamic experts later testified that in their opinion, the model was remarkable. And next to that, you see numerous hieroglyphs that look like advanced aerodynamic images found in a temple in Abydos, Egypt. Slavery was the greatest crime ever committed against humanity. It was a total conquest of the black man's physical, mental, and social being. It is too much to really go into here in the short time that I have with you, but you can find more detailed information about the root causes of the systemic racism that we see in America today in my book. African Americans have had many heroes come along who fought the good fight and tried to lift us out of the condition that they found us in. I go into great detail about their lives, histories, and accomplishments in the chapter in the book. Some of the men and women I cover are Malcolm X, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Sojourner Truth, Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, Frederick Douglass, W.B. Du Bois, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, Medgar Evers, Nat Turner, and Booker T. Washington. Perhaps I'll also discuss examples of when the oppressed felt like they had no other recourse but to lash out violently. Examples like the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, and the Cuban Revolution. I also discuss a few close calls like the King assassination riots, the Fruitvale protest in Oakland, the Baltimore and St. Louis protests, the LA riots, and many others. So how do we solve this problem? From my view, we only have a few options. Do nothing and hope that this problem will miraculously heal itself, or get serious about solving the issue. First, white America must give up her white privilege. Secondly, the attack against the darker people of the planet must stop. In my book, I discuss conspiracy theories surrounding COVID and other world population theories. And lastly, will America give the black man justice, or will she continue to run the risk of her peace being threatened? Not by the black man, but by God himself, who is the author of justice. Obviously, black people are not naturally violent, as evidenced by this picture of the Million Man March in 1995. When you compare what nearly 2 million of us did in Washington, D.C., and the beauty of that day to what a bunch of rebels and racists did on January 6th, you can see that our preference is not violence. We'd much rather enjoy reconciliation and atonement, which many believe can only come in the form of reparations, which may also include separation, especially if white America is unwilling or unable to give the black man complete justice. In closing, George Washington was correct. The slaves did become a troublesome species of property before too many years passed over his head and the country's head. 1 year before his death, he said, quote, "This may seem a contradiction, but I think you must perceive that it is neither a crime nor an absurdity when we profess as a fundamental principle that liberty is the inalienable right of every man. We do not include madmen or idiots. Liberty in their hands will become a scourge. Until the mind of the slave has been educated to perceive what are the applications of a state of freedom, the gift would ensure its abuse." Well, George left that education to another day. Please pick up a copy of my book today, because we can no longer depend on others to teach us what we need to know in order to perceive the proper applications of our freedom. The book is available on Amazon and all other major platforms, including my website, MikeShabazz.com. Thank you.